So as I say, I'm going to give you examples, but this is not a collection. It's a systematic approach. So the 5 teacher moves I'm going to talk about that deepen engagement, promote self-directed learning, and deeper thinking. The first one is asking a series of probing questions. And I have that underlined because I see a lot of teacher evaluation tools that say, did the teacher ask a higher order question? Well, I've been in classrooms where the teacher asks a higher order question that nobody answers, or 2 students can answer and nobody else is sure what to do. So the idea of a series of probing questions provides many entry points for students in the class to help them all get there. The other thing about this, and this is what the research says, if a teacher believes all students are capable, they will ask probing questions. But when they don't believe students are capable of achieving deeper thinking, they tend not to probe. They tend to ask a lower level question and move on. So the more we ask a series of questions that increase in depth and complexity, the more students will arrive at the destination we're hoping for. The second is the ability to build schemas in each content area. And I underline each content area, but both parts are important. So what's a schema? A schema is a mental map, mentally creating an organizational file cabinet to put information in for each content area, because each content domain has its own schema. It's got its own structures. It's got its own vocabulary and terminology. And this is why we can't take a verb like analyze and use that verb in the same way across every content area. If I said analyze a text, students are going to use a different schema than if I say analyze this experimental design. The schema is, how do you develop an experimental design? How do you develop a text? How do you develop math problem solving in the real world? So teachers do sometimes use activities that build schema, but I don't think they use it with intent. So we need to think about, how can we use activities with intent to help students build their own mental schemas? When you build a mental schema, new information coming in has a place to land in your brain. And if you don't have the mental schema already in place, even if it's not perfect and complete, students will spend a lot of their working memory trying to figure out what this connects to. Third is consider ways to strategically scaffold learning. And I underline strategic because a lot of times scaffolding strategies are used, but they might not be the most appropriate for our intended purpose. And I'm going to talk about 3 purposes that I think are pretty common in most classrooms. One is to support executive functioning, but a strategy to support executive functioning might not be as useful for developing deeper understanding of the content. So I'll try to give you a couple examples of each of those. D is designing complex texts, and I'm going to talk a little about how to design them where the students have input into the text. And I'll talk about my own evolution of how I got to this place, where rather than me designing the task and students performing those tasks, how do I co-create those task components with my students? And co-creating is a word I heard in several sessions. It's like whenever you get the buy-in, a few people put that in the chat, that when they are part of the development of what they're going to learn, there's more buy-in. And the last but not least is engaging students in metacognition and reflection. And you notice I have underlined before, during, and after. Metacognition happens during the learning. Reflection happens before. What did I learn that I can apply here? And after the learning, what takeaways do I have? What would I do differently next time? So rather than an exit card at the end of class, which is okay, but how can I tap metacognition throughout the learning process? And you notice I tried to Make an easy way to remember these ABCs if you hadn't noticed it yet. Ask questions, build schemas, consider strategic scaffolding, designing complex tasks, and engaging students in metacognition and reflection. I'd like just